Hey guys, I'm back with another video, a different camera angle, and the lighting is not too good. I don't want on my lights because, it looks kind of weird, so I'll just off it and just, talk about things, right? So, last 2 weeks I had a friend talk to me. He was in a job that he was currently doing, and they promised him, so the long story short is that he went to interview for a position, an executive position, and 1.5 years later nothing changed and he was not accepted into that position, but he is still doing that job. He's currently still working on that job in that role, but they don't formally accept him into that role. So you kind of get the gist of it, right? So he was stuck there. He didn't know what to do. 1.5 years after constantly appealing and getting his manager to talk to the bosses of the company or something like that. I don't know. I don't know any of that. He was still rejected. So he was stuck. He felt stuck. He felt like there's no hope in him. There's no future in there for him. And so he decided to take the chance and to send in his resignation letter and go for something that is better. So I want to talk about this today, right? In that same predicament that my friend was in, if he didn't took the opportunity that is required, right? If he did not take the step that is required for him to leave the company and to search for something and somewhere else better, he would still be in the same position 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? A lot of people say, what if he just stayed for another year and, possibly they might give him the position. But what if he doesn't? For a small percentage of people, continuing to persevere in what they're doing right now, they achieve success out of it. I understand, and that is true. But for a majority of the people, things like this don't happen. A lot of people stay in the same job that they're working and, stay in the same position that they are. Nothing changes, and, 30 years down the road, they're still where they were 30 years ago. And because they were afraid, right, of taking that leap of faith, they were afraid of taking that step out of their comfort zone and try for something else, that they're still in the same position that they were in 30, 40 years ago, until the day they retire and they look back on their life and then they realize, I've been doing this my whole life. And just because I was afraid of taking that step out, just because I was afraid of pursuing what I truly want, this is my whole life already, right? That's why, in a sense, right, you have to, if you don't see yourself being in that position 5 years or 10 years from now, take the chance, leave, go do something better with your life. You only live once, and you do not want to live a life of regret. And of course, when I say do something that you are passionate about and take that leap of faith and do the thing that you want, it should be morally, ethically upright. It should be according to the law, right? So, follow the dreams that you want, do the things that you want, go out there, try, fail, right? So if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I'll give you a very simple example, right? I had an uncle who was a technician back when he was young. He didn't have, he didn't complete his formal education. I think he stopped halfway in high school, and he just went out into the workforce and worked. And he started as a technician, a person who repairs cars. And now, fast forward, I think probably around 40 years, he is a very successful businessman, a very successful one, and I respect him a lot. So, if he did not change his circumstances, if he did not, what he did was that, if not mistaken, he came out and started doing businesses, right? He started his own, I think it's something like a sales company or something like that. And from there, he slowly progressed into this, into that, and now he is a very successful businessman with a lot of businesses. So, going back to the point, right? If nothing changes, nothing changes. I thought to myself, if my uncle didn't change the way he was thinking, didn't change his mindset, and he continued on working at his job 20 years ago as a technician, he probably will still be a technician right now, or he could be retired and been working as a technician for maybe a whole 30 years or 40 years. That's why I think it's very important that we have to take the change necessary. We have to have the courage to act upon something that we want. Of course, in this context, I'm talking about things that are ethically, morally, and it follows the law, and it's ethically and morally upright, right? So if you want to achieve something and you want to chase for your goals and you want to be able to live out the dream that you want, the dream life that you want, and you want to be someone that you can respect, then you should make the change that is required, rather than sulking about things and bitching about things. Make the change that you want, right? If you are in a dead-end job, and if you are not seeing the future in the job you are currently working at, then by all means, make some changes that is required. If I was in that position, at a dead-end job, and I had no skill set, nothing whatsoever, I would quit my job. But before quitting my job, I would polish up on my communication skills, right? My negotiation skills, the art of selling, the art of negotiation, persuasive, all these things. And then I will quit my job and go for a sales job, right? Because as a sales job doesn't require formal education, not really as in a sense, not required formal education, but you can perform well in sales if you can speak, if you can negotiate, and if you can try to sell someone something. You're good at selling people something, you're good at closing deals, right? It doesn't require to go to university, go to 3 years or 4 years of university, and then come out and then you have to have a degree to enter the industry. No, a sales job is where you can just go in, show people how well you're selling it, because at the end of the day, it's your progress and the way you are able to sell something to someone. It's basically your performance that carries you in terms of your salary and your allowance, right? So that is sales. So if you leave it up to me, right, that's what I would do. But if I was afraid of making this change and I did not change anything and I was still working my dead-end job, I would still be in the same position 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I would still be in the same job. I work right now and I see people working the same job for a whole 30 years and they don't change, they don't do nothing. 30 years, 35 years, they just at doing the same thing again and again and again. And of course, by all means, I don't disrespect, I don't disregard them. Probably they love their job and that's what they love doing. And if you enjoy doing it, by all means, go ahead. But what I'm talking right now is if you hate where you are at right now, if you hate the position that you are in, then you should do something and act upon it. Implement change in your life, right? Just like an example that I used just now, or a simpler example, right? You want to have a good physique. You have a below average physique right now. You want to build muscle on your body. You want to look better. The change you have to make and you have to take is, two things. First, follow a routine, a plan, a diet or something like that, a meal plan. And second thing, start working out. These are the two things that you have to change in terms of your action. And if you change these two things in terms of your action, then the thing that will follow, right, the circumstances that will change is that you will be more muscular. You will look more muscular. And it's as simple as that, right? If nothing changes, nothing changes. But if something changes, right, your life changes as well. And it's as simple as that. So I told the same thing to my friend, and I advised him, you have to make the change that is required. You have to move on. You have to find somewhere else that really respects you and needs you and appreciates you in the way that you are supposed to be appreciated. I'm a person who, I don't mind if you work a job or you start your businesses. Some people say you have to start a business. For me, if you work a job that you love, right, and that you like, then by all means, if you're happy, go ahead. You win in life, right? I'm not gonna say anything else, but generally that's the general idea of things. So the main thing I just want to say today is that you, in order to live the life that you want, right, in order to stop hating the life that you have right now, make the changes that is necessary, make the changes that is required for you to respect yourself one day, and when you're old one day, look back on yourself and thank yourself for making the decision to change and to take action. So that is all that I want to say today. Thank you guys for watching my video, and I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.